what's the real risk in 2021 and beyond? In last week's podcast, I reflected on what we have learned from the year 2020. By doing so, I argued that the United States has the world's strongest and most resilient economic and financial system. I also made the bold statement that Americans should enter the new year with more rather than less confidence in their political system. Little did I know that only 2 days later a violent mob would attack the heart of that political system, and that Donald Trump is now the first president of that political system to be impeached a second time. Then again, on the same day, the Democrats gained control over the US Senate, in addition to the House of Representatives and the presidency, which they already control. And since, US markets have continued to break new records. This is not to deny the gravity of what happened on January the 6th in Washington, D.C. But I stand by my judgment that beneath the surface of harsh words and scaled-up divisive rhetoric, the US political system is much stronger than many believe. What then could go wrong in 2021 and beyond? Well, it's quite simple. In 2021, we will start coming to the realization that what is good for the economy and for political stability might end up being less good for investors. Just think of it. From 1979 to this day, the period some have called the Great Moderation, stable economic growth has gone hand in hand with ever lower interest rates. Low interest rates increase the present value of any investment, so the interests of investors have for 4 decades been aligned with economic and political stability. Today, however, interest rates are close to zero, their nominal lower bound, and the new US administration has the power and the motives to engage in massive fiscal spending. Other advanced economy governments will move in the same direction. So if I ask myself, what could go wrong in 2021 and beyond? It must have somehow to do with a new contradiction, namely, what's good for the economy and the political system might not always rhyme with higher asset prices. The main concern here is a resurgence of inflation as we move from QE 1.0 to the so-called QE 2.0. Now, what's that? Well, it simply means that massive government spending will this time involve a surge in broad money supply, not only an increase in central banks' assets. Now, let me reassure you, we don't see a massive pickup in inflation in 2021. The global supply of goods and services is still well in excess of the global demand of goods and services. Likewise, the global supply of savings still hugely exceeds the global demand for investments. But for the decade to come, that might change. It might change because economic and political stability might require higher inflation to reduce the real costs of accumulated debts. It might change because the electorate in many advanced economies, and in particular in the US, will insist on redistribution of income away from capital and back to labor. Thus, an initially slow rise in inflation is likely to build up in the decade to come, and that is the biggest risk for global asset prices. As such, it will become the principal thing to keep on our radar screens.